I want to share with you a story that happened to me this week. I got a letter Sunday night. It was pretty scathing. And it's always hard to get those type of letters. The first reaction is always like that, right back. But I told the person that I have a Kabbalah, I have a Masera, a directive from Israel Belsky, never send an important letter on the same day. He said, write the letter. In those days, there was something like, with pens and paper and stamps, you put in the mailbox. Anyway, you'll see, I actually did that this time. So they said, write the letter and look at it the next day. You'll always see something very different. And then redo the letter. Okay, so that's what I did. I wrote the letter. And the next morning, I rewrote it completely. And I said, I can't send such a letter email. I said, I'm going to go to the post office and send it. So first of all, they don't let you into the post office anymore. Just make an appointment to go to the post. I called up. They had like 2 openings. I got to the post office. And then they said, I want the letter delivered today. How much is it? They said 80 shekels. I'm like, oh my gosh, 80 shekels. But I said, what? It's a really important letter. I'm going to do it. I'm going to splurge. It was very, very important topic. And I sent the letter. And I felt really good, a couple of reasons. Number one is because had I sent that letter right away, it would have been like a disaster. It would have just been totally, I won't say revenge but it would have been just getting out, what they call venting. It would have been venting. It wouldn't really have accomplished the goal. But since I waited, and I thought about it, I took Eitzah from somebody how to write the letter. So it came out very nicely. And then I said, what? This is like a letter. I'm going to go to the post office and send it. So Baruch Hashem. And this attribute, it's critical. I always knew it was critical, but this week we're going to see in the Gra, it is really the foundation of success in all of Avodas Hashem, as we'll see. So we're going to come back to Pasuk Yud Daled, but this week I want to really focus on Pesach Tezvav and Tezayin, which we encountered this personality type before. It's very interesting. I was writing a tshuva about personality disorders in halacha, and I couldn't find too much about it, but I did find one piece very well written, which is mostly drawing from Mishlei, and it gives all of the different personality categories that Shlomo Melech describes. And one of the big ones is right here in Pasuk Yud Beis Pasuk Tezvav. It's called the Avil, right? Avil, Aleph Vav Yud Lamed. Now I firmly Parak Yud Beis Pasuk Tezvav. It's Kuf Lamed Vav in this edition. The Avil, that's Aleph Vav Yud Lamed, and there's a book called The Word. Have you ever seen this book before? It has 20,000 words in foreign languages, which all stem from Hebrew, because we know that by Migdal Bavel, so there was only Lashon Kodesh, also Aramaic probably. And all of these languages all stem from Hebrew. So a lot of times Rashi or the Gemara will bring a proof from a foreign language. It's all a foreign language. So the word evil, I believe, comes from the word avil, right? And we'll see, avil, what's so bad about an avil? He doesn't sound like such a bad guy when you first meet him. But as you get to know him more, you'll see he's finished. It's all over. Look, listen to this. The pasuk says here, Derech Avil Yasher Be'enav. The Avil, so the first thing that Shlomo Melech teaches about an Avil, and we're going to talk about this next week as well, because there are 4 or 5 other places in Mishlei where it comes up. This is for the next 2 weeks, we're going to work on this. So one thing we know about the Avil is Yasher Be'enav. Whatever he does, that's the right thing. You know why? There's another pasuk in Mishlei, Kol Derech Ish Yasher Be'enav. It looks right because I'm thinking about it, so it must be right. I'm always right. But where does that? So it's interesting. The person who thinks he's wrong, because he has to ask a chacham, so he's the good guy. And the person who thinks he's right, he doesn't have to ask, so he is the guy who has the problem. He's the evil guy. So what's going on here? What's this all about? The Gemara explains like this. So the second thing we learn about the Avil, Sha'avil hu muvhal. Anyone know what muvhal means?
No.
It comes up a lot in Megillah Esther. Yeah, rush. But more than rush, it's like frenzied, panic, Like all throughout the Megillah, there's, everything was like very, very fast. Fast. Mobile, but panicked, He's a frenzy. Omasha Allah alibo yasher be'enav. Be'enav shmei leitza. He doesn't bother because it must be right. I thought of it. Aval hacham shmei leitza be'enav osa shum davar im enam yushid. He doesn't do anything without first thinking about it, asking somebody, turning it over, looking at the possibilities, like Rebelsky said, waiting till the next day, right? Because things always look different the next day. V'sholeitz v'chacham be'enav somach al atzmo. Right? So now here's the key word here. So we learned something very important. We learned that the aval is like really fast, like this instant reaction, and the chacham, the aram, we're going to see is called aram, the opposite. Impulsive. That's the right word. That's what I was looking for. Impulsive. Right. Okay. Impulsive. Right. So he's impulsive, right? But the chacham, he takes time to ask an eitzah. And we'll see, I had a big chiddush today. I think it's emes. After 25 years, I understood something what Scheinberg told me. I could say it now even, right? Scheinberg told me once, he said the way to fight the Eitar is 1 second. Think about it for 1 second. So my chiddush today was you could be the chacham. I was on the bus yesterday. You'll appreciate this story because I think it happened to you also. And I just walked on the bus and Rav Safrani calls me up, and it was a very, very important phone call. I had full concentration. So I'm standing on the bus, and within 3 seconds, one of these guys gets on, who takes your, and I think they have to catch 50 people every month, and this guy only had 7. It's and it's getting to the end of the month. So he sees me, and he senses that I haven't paid because I'm on the phone. I just got on the bus. So he runs over. I took out my card. I was about to pay, and he runs over. He grabs the card, and he says, he had this victorious look on his face. So I'm at that moment, what does Hashem want me to do at this moment? So I said, say Eino Milvado, right? I said Eino Milvado a number of times. Anyway, the guy's smiling. He says, give me your Tuzat Zehut immediately. I said, I don't have one. So give me your passport. I said, I don't have one. Why not? So I lost my passport. I got a temporary one. I sent it to the embassy. The same fact, the guy was fuming. Because he has no way to identify me, and he said some nasty words. He got off the bus, but I was happy at that moment because I had the yeshiva das at that. What are you supposed to do in such a situation?
Well, why can't you just say I didn't get a chance yet to pay?
I know I said that, and 2 other people on the bus said it also, but it was Kol derech isha. Was it say derech avol yashveina? He's right because he needs 43 more people. But anyway, so the point is this. The point is that 1 second, as Rosh Hashanah told me, of Yisha, what am I going to do? I was in the middle of a conversation with Safrani, he sensed that there was something wrong. He hears people screaming at me, and I said, I'm sorry, Rav, I have to go. I could have asked him, what should I do, on the bus? What's the halacha about, But the point is, I didn't do that. I just said, I closed the conversation. I said, Eino Milvado, and it worked, He let me go, So, B'kitzur, that eitzah we could take from ourselves, right? Because if you just stop and think, really, we all have split personalities, right? Meaning that we have our personality when the Eitzar attacks us, and when we're free of the Eitzar. The Gur actually says it right at the beginning of the Sefer. The second pasuk in the Sefer. L'das chochma o musar. 11 Yerubin. It's Parak Aleph pasuk Beis. So the Gra says like this. The Gra says, Leida chochma shelo yipo b'reshi Eitzar. There's one wisdom is not to fall into the hands of the Eitzar. And you shouldn't be enticed by it. But Musar is when you're already in the hands of the Eitzar. So there's at least 2 personalities, or many actually. But there's one before when the Eitzar comes to stay away. That's one personality. And that's one methodology. That's Chokhmah. For that you need Chokhmah. Right? So Chokhmah would be stop. And that's what we're going to see today. Just stop everything you're doing and just think. That's Chokhmah. And then you save yourself from the Eitzar. That's one. Musar is if the Eitzar got you ready. Like, let's say you're at a wedding and there's a smorgasbord, and like this thought got into your head, which I know gets into many people's heads, that the more food you eat at the smorgasbord, the happier the chassan and kala are. If there are 50 tables and you eat from 50 of them, like one for every state of America, and what's it called? Puerto Rico, Alaska. So there are some, you could, if you look hard. Generally not. Yeah. Anyway, I was at a wedding last week, and they had all these tables around, but it was like everything was dripping. I said, "Oh, I didn't touch this," so I just passed. But the point is like this: then you're already at your fourth table, and and so like, number 46 to go. And like, so Musser is like getting out. Like, wait a second, I already had 17 different types of food. I don't need to have everything here. Like the chassan and kala are not even here yet. That's musar. That's getting out. Right? But in any event, the point here is this. The point here, that's my chiddush for today, which Rosh Steinberg told me, is you can be the chacham. The point, you just have to stop. That's it. That is, we're going to see, that's le'etz chacham. That's the chacham and the avil. The impulsive person, what's the opposite of impulsive? Depulsive? No. What? In English, I say. Thought out. There must be a word. There's a good word. Okay, it'll come during Shmonas. Okay. So that's the thing, but not unimpulsive. So that's the thing. But now here comes the clincher. This is like so important. This next line. The Gemara says like this, right? Why is this? Why does he always ask a chacham, and why does he not rely on his own understanding? So this is like the secret here. This is the sod. Ki machshavas adam rak ra kol hayam. V'yetzlev adam ra minura. The thing is like this. After the chait of Adam Rishon, the first, and now the Yitzhar is inside. The Rambam in the Mar Nevuchim explains, the Yitzhar used to be on the outside. With the snake, it used to be on the outside, tempting you. But what we learned this many times in the Gordy, the Yitzhar came inside of you. And the Yitzhar pretends that it's you. The Gra says it in the Pasuk, Tov Erech Apayim Gibor, Moshe Baruch Lo Gedir. He says, how sometimes the enemy army will put on their uniforms on the other side and pretend that they're the friendly ones. The Yitzhar does that. He puts on your jacket and your hat and your shirt and your tie and looks exactly like you. And he says, you only had 4 tables? Like, the chassan and kala are going to be so disappointed. You have to eat more. And it really convinces you. Or, it says like this, or, you need a break. Don't go to Marib tonight. Overexert yourself. It's like Corona out now. The doctor told me today, Corona's back. You have to don't daven, don't learn, just stay at home, close yourself in a room. These type of arguments, and generally when it's the right thing, they say don't do it, and when it's the wrong thing, they say do it. That's the point. Because now Yetzer, and this is what the Gra is saying, because now what happened is that our makshavas, the first initial makshava that you have is always going to be the Yetzer Hara. This is what the Gra is saying here. That's the pshat, right? Ki makshavas adam rak ra kol yom. It doesn't mean the whole day, right? Because then there's no hope. It means the first thought, and there's Rabbeinu Yonah, others say this as well. The first thought that comes to your mind is generally the Yetzer Hara. The Gra says it right at the beginning of the Sefer also, Aleph Gimel. He says, and when you have initial excitement, we spoke about that many times, be careful. Because the Yetzer Hara has the first shots at you, He'll shoot an idea into your head, and then your job is just to think about it, to realize it's just completely ridiculous, and just go on, So this is really, really what we have to do, Now, so let's go back to the example of that letter, right? So my first reaction was I really have to let this person have a piece of my mind, as my charusa in yeshiva, Zev Epstein once said, if you give them too much, you'll have nothing left, right? Or too open-minded, your brains fall out. So if you give them a really big piece of your mind, then you're really stupid, you don't have brains. So what did Reb Belsky say? No, that's not what you should do. You should write the letter, put it in your draft box, look at it the next day, and then send it, And if it's a really important letter, put it in the mail. It's just, I don't want to spend 80 shekels, but he told me, if you get a regular stamp, there's 0.01% chance to arrive. If you get regular express mail, there's a 50% chance to arrive. And if you get the regular, so I wanted 100% odds. But Kitzer, so this is the thing, but just stop, and be miyushav, right? And if you have a chacham available, the chacham might be your spouse, it might be your friend, it might be your rav or rebbitzin, just somebody, you know. And the truth is, the person I took Eitzah with is somebody who considers me to be their rav, But they called me up and they knew about this particular union, and I just spoke it out with them. And, Rav Shach once came to the Stipler and he says, "I'm making you my rav." So I said, "But I'm much younger than you, and you know more than me." Like he was the gadol hador. The Stipler was very big, but he said it doesn't matter. You just need to have somebody to speak to air things out. And where did I read this in a book? It might have been in what's it called? The book about 7 Habits of Highly Influential People, or I think it was that book.
Yes.
Yeah. So he writes there, Abraham Lincoln, when he was deciding whether or not to free the slaves, he called his friend in, I forgot his name, and he was asking advice, but the whole time he was speaking. He just needed somebody to listen. Sometimes you just need someone to listen, right? A good listener, that's very great chachma. The Rav Eli Lapian once went into Brisker Rav, and he went in for 5-10 minutes. The Brisker Rav spoke. He didn't say one word. He left. The Brisker Rav said, "Chacham otzum." He's brilliant. He didn't say anything because he knew the way he listened, what he said, what he reacted, to interact. So that's the thing. You need to deflect. Now it could be it's right the first thought, but the Yetzer Hara is still there. We had such a case with Rav Chaim Belazhin when he wanted to start yeshiva, but he was too excited. So the Gra was just quiet. And he went back 6 months later with the same idea, and he said, "Go ahead with it." Because it might be the idea is right, but our attitude, our emotions, our feelings, there's some element of the Yetzer Hara's involvement. So that's why that's called muvhal. We know the characteristic of the Yetzer Hara is this, like this. If you feel like this, then it's the Yetzer Hara. I always give the example. I was taking my tefillin out once from yeshiva, and I was late already for davening, and someone came and asked me directions. And I told him. And he said, "Can you repeat that?" And I was going to say, "Are you deaf?" I was I was in a rush, And then I realized, that's it. It was like this. And that the Gra calls that ra, right? When you want to do something bad to you, it could just be I'm really in a hurry. And that's also the same thing. It doesn't have to be so strong. If there's one word in there which is pressured thing, and that means that the Yetzer Hara got some grab on you and pushed you, right? So the goal would be, sure, I'll repeat it again. And then he says, "Can you repeat it again?" There's a story with little Yashiv. There was someone who regularly came and asked him the same exact question 8 times. And he just answered it the 8th time like the first time, with complete patience. We know the story of Preda. He taught his student 400 times, and they just didn't get it. So he taught another 400 times. Because that's what happens. Can I have more of the juice? I'm so thirsty.
Yeah.
The same one, yeah. That's what happens when the Yetzer Hara, right? When the Yetzer Hara is involved, if the Yetzer Hara is involved, so then it just pushes us to do things we don't want to do, to deceive, to hurt people, to tai v'chemda, ra mirma. All of these incorrect actions that comes from avil, right? Again, because the initial reaction is always going to be the Yetzer Hara, and there's 6 Yetzer Haras, right? It's good to have this on your fingertips. I once made a badge. Do you make the metal badge? Did you get one? I got a metal badge. Okay, I don't have them anymore. But I made a metal badge with the 6 types of Yetzer Hara on them, right? There's 6 of them. It's Ra, Mirma, Tai V'chemda, Gorgon. And that's Ra is doing bad to people, saying even one word too strongly. That's Ra. Mirma is deception, something which is not. I was in America. Someone told me the minhag is in the garment industry. If something is 51% cotton, right? 100% cotton. I'm how can't make a minhag? That's called stealing, right? That's called mirma, right? The Yetzer Hara is constantly these 6, I call them viruses, but these 6 they're pushes, If somebody says something to you and upsets you, and you talk a little bit strongly, or you for sure really strongly, That means you've like been attacked by the Yetzer Hara, and like you have to get out, right? How do you do that? That's what the Gemara is saying here. That is the Chacham. The Avil will just react immediately, and let him have it. But the Chacham, he'll take Eitzah with somebody else, with himself. He'll just stop. He'll think about the situation. He'll realize that he's under attack, and he'll answer completely calmly. Right? Now, it's a skill. And Shlomo Melech said, Ezu Gibra Kovish Yitzro. The person who's really strong is someone who could kovish his Yetzer Hara. Because, the Shlomo Melech says, Tov Erech Apayim B'Gibor. Right? The person who's really strong, but to be patient, it takes even more strength because you have this inner force pushing you to do the wrong thing. Okay. So this is the first piece of great, great wisdom that the Gra is offering us. Yeah. The next part is Kabbalah. I'll just read it quickly. There's a little bit we could take from it, but I want to get on to the next pasuk, so I'm just going to read it quickly. Okay. So I'm going to read the whole thing again because it's so important. Yeah. Derech Avil Yosheveina. Sha'avil hu muval. He's impulsive, right? Umasha Ola Liboy Yosheveina. Every thought that he has, he thinks it's the right thing, and it's completely wrong. Because the initial reaction is always the Yetzer Hara. And he doesn't listen to Eitzah. That's the Avil. That's why he's evil. He's evil. He's branded as evil because the evil inclination is directing his whole life and he doesn't realize it. Right? Ra, Mirma, Taiva, Chemda, Gay, Gon, all the time, 24/7, all the time it's being directed. He doesn't stop and think, so he doesn't realize what's going on. But on the other hand, the Chacham, he listens to Eitzah from others or from himself. He doesn't do anything without being miyushav. Because he knows if he's not miyushav, it's the Yetzer Hara. V'shol eitz l'chacham ve'ena samachan. He doesn't trust himself. Ki makshavas adam rak ron kol hayam v'yetz leiv adam raminurav. Right? After Chet Adam Rishon, every single initial thought we have is to do the wrong thing. And it doesn't have to be, it could be 1% wrong. But there's something negative about the initial thought that we have. And we have to take time to think about it and to weed out that bad thing. Yeah.
Miriam Manahan always says, ignore your initial response.
Right. That's exactly it. That's where it's from here. The Gra said it even before Miriam Manahan.
Well, I guess you just been saying it in the name of the Gra.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm only kidding. She was my neighbor for a long time. What? Okay. She's a smart person. If she says that, then she's very smart. Okay. So now we're going to read the next part. It's Kabbalah, but let's just go with it. Okay. V'amrei etzel Avil Einav Chacham Shomea. So why by the Avil does it talk about the eyes, and by the Chacham it talks about the ears? Right? So there's a really easy answer that goes somewhere else. It says the reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth is because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. Okay, but here's talking about the eyes. So that answers ears. If we learned not long ago before Pesach that the person has 3 close friends, and that's your 2 ears and your heart. Right, those are your good friends. So the ears we understand, but the eyes we have to see. What do you say? Oh, that's good. That's good. We'll see. So he says like this, a little bit Kabbalistic here. Ki ayin va'ozen heim Torah sheb'ksav Torah sheb'al peh. Right? Because obviously you see the written Torah and you hear the Torah sheb'al peh. Right? Okay, va'ozen. V'zeh duchra v'nukva. In general Kabbalistic terminology, the mashpia is called the zachar and the makabel is called the nekeva. Ki ayin hu duchra, because you're seeing, you're taking it in, right? Seeing. Va'ozen hu nukva. Shebehem makabel dibor me'acher. Oh, so now the Gra says, "V'tov lios min ha'makablem mimin ha'mashpia." In general, the Gra says, especially in the beginning, which is like the first, 110 years of your life, whatever, it's good to be a makabel, right? Because and that's what he's saying here. Especially when you know that you're being influenced by the Yetzer Hara, so you should accept Eitzah from other people, right? And that's the difference between the Chacham and the Avil. The Avil, he wants to give out, he has a lot to say about everything, right? A lot of everything. What is it? A little of nothing. A lot of everything. A little bit of nothing. Whatever it is. But it's just a lot of hot air. It's just sometimes you hear people speak and they just said absolutely nothing. The Gomer Bava Metzia compares it to a pushka with 1 coin in it, and you shake it, and like it makes fun of
Carry
it.
it.
Right, exactly. So that the Avel is like always looking to show people how smart he is. Yeah, how smart he is. But the Chacham, on the other hand, is always looking to listen. Yeah, that's a Snuim Chacham, says the Gra. Kamash Kasav, be a zanav la'arayis, valti Rosh Hashanah. It's better to be a tail to lions than a head to foxes. Possess derech Aval Yashav Einav. Shechefso lios min hamashmim. He wants to tell everyone how smart he is. Aval Chacham shemei le'etza v'chefso lios min hamakablim shmei etza. Right? Ezu Chacham. It doesn't say somebody who gives shirim all the time. It says alone mikol adam. Right? Any person, even a child. Yeah, you can learn from every single person in the world. You can learn something, and the person who goes through life like that, that's the real Chacham. Yeah, and that's the difference between the Avel and between the Chacham. And we all want to be the Aval. We want to be the Chacham. Slept there. Okay. Okay, let's go on. The next pasuk is really, really important, and it goes back to our initial story about getting such a letter or somebody. I always tell you this story about the bus driver, right? I told you that so many times. The bus driver closed the door on my foot, and I had broken that ankle like 4 or 5 months before, and I was like thinking, like, what am I going to do? Because if I like yell at him, he's just going to yell back, and I'm just going to be stuck with my foot in the bus. So I just waited, and he opened the door, and again the busing is like screaming at me. He says, "Do you know how much money it would have cost me if the door had broken? Yeah, and you stuck your foot in there." I was like, "Well, like you only gave me 1.2 seconds, and I need 1.3. I just almost got it in. Just like my ankle got stuck, but I didn't say anything. I said, "I'm so sorry. I apologize." I think someone had tinnitus on me for this. Someone in the share. Okay, but the point is like this. The point is that when you're upset and you let it out, then that's going to be a big problem. But the person who's smart knows how to cover up his real emotions. Let's just see. Okay. It says like this. Abel biyam yivada kaso. Like he'll let you know the way he feels. The Abel, right? But the kisei kolon aram, the person who covers up his disgrace, he's really wise. The Gra says like this. Misha Mufal, take it kashir lo shum davar. Anything bad happens to him, if you step on his foot, like it's all over. Right? Forget about it. He's gonna let you have it. Oshem also v'tvarim, but also yami v'adakasu. He's gonna like let you have it. Ki eini yochel l'sa'apik. He has just no control over his emotions, and he thinks like that's the right thing to do because he's teaching the world like they should be more careful. I once had someone used to drive me every day to Yishkolol, and like 7 or 8 times along the way, tipesh, this all the time, and I said you're gonna have a stroke, and he did. I said you can't go through life. My wife just told me today she read, who was this? And she was quoting actually this woman, what's her name, Jenny Goldstein. She had her shir from her. Anyway, so she said when a person gets like upset, like their body secretes certain chemicals which are just dangerous, toxic, So the person,
And they last for 48 hours.
yeah, it's crazy.
Which means that if you get upset all the time,
Yeah, you're
you
drowning.
always have those chemicals on your
Yeah,
skin.
like what do you want that for, right? What?
Mindy's sympathetic system is being activated.
Right.
The central nervous system
Really?
is activated.
Yeah. So the thing is like this, that the person who is constantly doing that, he's putting his life in danger. Yeah. But the person on the other hand, the kisei column, the person controls himself. Look, first of all, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that if you get one negative comment and you accept it with Abba, 100 averos get erased. Or Gzar Din, like it's just like amazing. It's amazing. I met my Rosh Yeshiva on the plane once with Shiko Shlesky, and he told me these trips are very hard for me. I said, Bizyonos? He said, Bizyonos are great. Like it just like went crazy how like amazing it is, right? Right. And that's it because it just erases your Averis and it ends the Gzar Din. Like it's incredible. But on the spot, it's hard. If somebody gives it to you, like really, like this letter I got on Sunday night, it was really harsh, and it contained some true information and some false information and some opinions and some criticism and some compliments. was all famish, so it was hard for me to just read this letter. But that's it. You have to cover up. That's the job.
What does it mean to cover up?
So we'll see. He's going to explain it in 1 second. It's a good question.
Just because sometimes people, when they don't let out their emotion, they just explode.
Well, yeah, you have to
That's
vent.
obviously not what
There's a
you
difference
really
between
should
venting and the venting to the person. Like the person who insulted you, I'm going to vent to you, like, and you just start screaming. That's not. You want to vent to your friend or someone else. That's good. Yeah. Daiga believe ish isachen, the Gemara says, right? Tell to someone and you'll be masiach das from it, right? But not to the person who did it to you. That's like a big mistake. That's like trying to put out a fire with charcoal fluid. You ever try that? It doesn't work. So aval mishu oram mechasekalim, right? He covers up, meaning he doesn't let the person who did it to him know about it. You have to have control of yourself and your emotions. Sha'aramhu, hey, the me was you have to be very tricky, because like the Yitzhak will come to you and say, "It's l'shem shamayim," right? This is like so important. It's kabbalah Torah, whatever it is. If you're a Talmid Chacham, kabbalah Torah. If it's this, standing up for my rights, not to be pushed around, whatever works for you, the Yitzhak will use that tactic. Someone told me recently, like now in sales, they have this new thing. If you purchase something online, they like make a profile of you, and then they'll start sending you, that ads for that item. And you purchase a second thing, they'll put the two purchases together, and then they'll modify it. And they're sending like you exactly what you're interested in, and you'll keep buying, and they'll keep modifying, and they knew you inside out. Yeah. That's exactly the way the Yitzhak knows. Works you. One Yitzhak will come and say this, and the other one will say the exact opposite, but it works. And for the third person, it's tailor-made, knows exactly who you are and what works for you, right? So you need great chachma to overcome this. That's what he's saying. You need armimius. You need cunningness. He's like screaming at him, yeah? Like this guy on the bus, like he was like calling me all sorts of names and this and like a disgrace to humanity because I didn't pay within like 5 seconds of getting the bus and I was speaking to the gadol at the door, and I'm like, I was on the way to do it, disgrace, this, all these things. I just said, Ein Amavado, I just said, Ein Amavado, and that's it, which is really the truth, right? So like this, so yeah. Doesn't know anything about it, yeah? Oh, you're talking about this other guy, right? Oh, now here, okay, that was what you brought up. See, this is a little bit interesting. It's the Gemara is saying that he doesn't tell other people about it, right? Maybe he's on a very high madrega, but look, for us, we need to vent. You need to tell people, And the truth is, this is a chiddush right now. When you tell the chacham, whoever the chacham might be, it might be your friend, you could vent and get eitzah at the same time, right? Right. So by asking eitzah, you're venting, right? But you're at the same time, what's it called? 2 for the price of 1, multitasking, yeah? You're venting, to a rav or a rebbitzin or a friend. Venting is like getting things off your chest, right? So like, so I spoke to my Talmud in America, and I told him what happened. And he says, Rabbi Travis, I think you need to write a letter for the following 3 reasons. And this is what I would advise you, Baruch, what to say, right? He's a person like very, very intelligent and then we spoke about it a little bit, we modified it, and that was it. So I had a chance to get it off my chest, right? And I got advice from someone. It was perfect, So you vent, right? That's your question. You get it off your chest, but at the same time, you get eitzah not to do something stupid, yeah? Because we all know whenever you act right away, you always regret it later. The Ibn Ezra said it. He said, pre-bahala is charata, right? The fruits of impulsivity is regret. You regret it. So we have to be really, really careful not to be impulsive, right? It could be like, obviously, you're going to say something, he's going to say something back. And it's just like going to be a snowball effect. It's going to get you absolutely nowhere. Just going to be more and more and more fighting and arguing, which It's just completely useless. It just frozen machlokas, and you get all those. What are these chemicals called that are released?
Cortisol.
What?
Cortisol.
Cortisol. Yeah. So you have these terrible chemicals in your body, which make you feel horrible afterwards, right? Chazal say, Sifrei Kabbalah say, you lose your neshama, right? When you get angry, it says your neshama leaves your body and is replaced with the Eish of Gehenna, right? When you get really angry. And you see people, sometimes like in a fit of anger, like they're raging, their like face turns red. And that red in your face is Gehenna. The fire of Gehenna is running your body. So it's really worthwhile to master this trait of, we didn't find a word yet, unimpulsivity, right? Being thought out. Any
Settled, no? His mind
Settled?
is settled.
That's pretty good. Settled. 1 second. I check my thesaurus.
Well,
Okay.
synonym,
It's not an easy word to translate.
Can I suggest that in English everybody's impulsive? There's no such word. Okay. I'll say that. Okay. Maybe in Spanish? Is there a word in Spanish? Okay. She's gonna check. Maybe in Japanese. Okay. But anyway, right? It's really French. What's it called? That, réfléchir. Okay. See, the French people, they know. But yeah, by Americans, like it has to be really, really quick, fast. Right? My brother-in-law told me a story. He was in, he lives in Rio, and he told me they went to a restaurant to order food, and 3 hours didn't come, and nobody was upset because, like in Rio, people are very, what's their réfléchir? Yeah, they're not impulsive over there. It's a different problem. But in New York, like in 3 minutes, if the food didn't come, people are banging the table. It's like, okay. But the moral of this story is like this. The moral of the story is that many times during the day, we have confrontations with the Yetzer Hara, and sometimes they're subtle, and sometimes they're not subtle. Sometimes they're like very strong, right? And whenever these confrontations take place, so the correct Torah reaction, the person who is, what? You found something?
It says adjective. No, adjective.
You need a sit. You need it, not an adjective.
Cautious.
Anthony. Cautious. Yeah, cautious. Okay.
Premeditated.
Yeah. English. They don't have anything that's not impulsive. The whole country is impulsive. Okay.
Okay. Cautious. Cautious is more.
Okay, I should be careful what I say.
Premeditated.
No.
Good. No?
Premeditated is when you murder somebody. Yeah.
No, but if you thought it out at first, premeditated versus something.
Okay, it's close. Yeah. Okay, there are probably some people.
It's usually used.
It's not one of the main without itself.
What, to be impulsive?
To be cautious. To be
Um,
cautious. Very good. Very good word.
It's cautious. It's not exactly, because cautious is protecting from danger. This is really, see,
It's shakul.
look, cunning is really, the Gra is saying the opposite of impulsive is cunning. Why? Because really you have to understand what's going on. That's what it's about to say. These 6 forces are constantly like trying to get us to do averas, to do the wrong thing, to act improperly, right? And raw is a lot of times, maybe that's why it's called Yetzer Hara, because a lot of times it's raw. Like, say one aggressive word to the person, do it like with a frown. Don't help the person like in that favor. Oh yeah, I can't really help you out. Don't give the money to Stucco, whatever it might be. I was walking here and I got a phone call, and like it was such a sad story, and I had said today I wanted to give Stucco, so I called. I gave the money. I just felt empathy for this really sad story, right? And the point is that you need cunningness, yeah. You need cunningness because it's very tricky. So that's why it's not cautious; it's cunningness and wisdom, right? The cunningness comes from yourself, and the wisdom comes from other people, right? Because their Yetzer Hara is confronting you with very, very challenging situations and very subtle. And it's so subtle, like you often won't even see it, right? There could be like 99% truth in your words, but there's like a small implication of shak. Now, sometimes that's the right thing to do. You go to someone's house and they give you food, and it's like you want to vomit. What do you think is food? It's so disgusting. Like, didn't you learn how to cook? You might want to say that, but they might not feel so good. from such a statement. I was in the hospital after getting run over by a car and pronounced dead, and someone handed me a sandwich, right? Of like this was maybe 2 days later, mustard and tomatoes, and that's like two foods I can't taste. And I told them, do you want me to suffer the rest of my life? And like every time I speak to this person, they say, "Oh, I hope you're not going to suffer the rest of your life." They like made an impact, right? And okay, that was an extreme case, but the HR is always trying to get us to be like a little more aggressive, a little more false, a little more taiva, a little more gaiva, all these things. It's trying to like edge its way into our personality. And when it does, it gets like, it's like the coronavirus. Like, I don't know how it works exactly, but like this one little germ gets in there and then suddenly like you're on the floor, right? So we have to be really, really careful just to like keep it out as much as we can out of our lives. And that's really, right, this is really why Shlomo Melech wrote this whole sefer of Mishlei, right? In order to teach us, right, the art of being cunning, right, of being cunning, as he said, ladas chochma umusar, right, chochma, musar, to be aram, etza. All of these techniques are techniques and tricks how to get around the Yetzer Hara, right? And all of them require the same thing, it's just to stop. Right? Like Rosh Hashanah said, stop for 1 second. You stop for 1 second, and then you can employ, Eitzah or from yourself, from other people. Try to think about what should I do under these circumstances, and then you'll be in a really, really good place. Because every time you do that, so you're weeding the Eitzah Hara out of your personality a little bit, right? Every time you fall for it, like the Eitzah Hara becomes more entrenched in your personality. We learned earlier in the Gon, the Gra says that every time you do a mitzvah, so you create a ruach. It's a bielachem ruchi. I don't remember usually what pasuk sukamar, but on the pasuk a bielachem ruchi. So he says every time you do the right thing, you create a yetzer, you create a power in yourself to do more of the right thing, and every time you do the wrong thing, you create a power in yourself to do more of the wrong thing. So we really have to, every time we're successful in a battle with the Yetzer Hara, so then, we created more kochos within ourselves to be successful in future confrontations. But every time we do the wrong thing, so we just created within ourselves more ammunition and more impetus to do the wrong things. Yeah, Abila Amruchi, to look it up later. But in any event, so that is really that's really the message today. I'm going to go back and do Pasuk Yud Daled, which we skipped. But a really good Kabbalah, and again, it's hard, right? It's hard because the best Kabbalahs are always when they are, how do you call that? When they're quantified, like the first time during the day, say Ashiyatu, say with Kavanah, right? Or when you're doing a Til Sidayim in the morning, like you get up, do a Til Sidayim, so you think about it. But here it's much more difficult because you don't, the HR attacks you 24/7. It's not such, it won't be so hard to find an opportunity because most people think, Don Segel said once, he had a neighbor, right, who wasn't really from, and he's just like, the HR never bothers me. I go to mixed speeches, and discos, and it doesn't bother me. So the point is though he said the cat, he said it very dramatically. He said the cat drinks spoiled milk and doesn't realize that it's bad. He said so. So like if you are somebody who's, a cat, so then, but like the person who's refined and understands how subtle the Yetzer Hara is, so that person, right, understands that all the time the Yetzer Hara is challenging him, and he's always ready, on guard, right, to do it. Now look, obviously, like you can't walking around like this, like you're being attacked on all sides. But the point is that try once a day, to stop and think. It's hard. I don't know if you do it once a week. If you do it once this week, that's like an incredible accomplishment, right? But you'll just, a good thing to do always is try to find one point in the day, like one conversation you have, with your friend or your spouse or your boss or somebody, like some people, whenever they speak to their boss, like, I got to get ready, so I'm going to get upset, right? When you have that conversation, arm yourself to be, arum, right? Or somebody who like really, really you don't get along with well, and that person, um, speak to them today, just like be ready for it, and they'll be surprised, because like usually, they'll complain to you or kvetch in this, and you'll say something. Today, you'll just listen to what they have to say, and you'll be ready. You'll be armed, and that's something really, really powerful if you could do that. And the goal eventually is that your whole life should be like that, right? And this is the way Gedolim live their life. Like every single thing they do is very, very miyushav, right? Shlomo Brevda told me he was out some of the biggest Gedolim in Klal Yisrael, and when they heard really good news, they were, a little bit happier. When they heard bad news, because like all the time, everything was really, really thought out. They didn't overreact to anything, and that's very, very powerful. If we could do that, our lives would be so much better, because we'll just deal with life in such a more intelligent way. Okay, I want to do one more pasuk just for the sake of shlemus over here. Pasuk Dalet, we skipped it, and it is slightly connected. It says like this: "Mipri piish yispatov, gmol yadam yishav yeshav." Right, from the mouth of a person will be satisfied with the goodness, gmol yadam yeshav, and a person gets back what he gives. So the Gra says like this: "Ma'inyan shechilik bein ish la'adam." There's a difference between like every single word of Mishlei is very, very calculated. When it's not just like we used ish and adam just so we in English you're not allowed to have the same word twice in one sentence. It's much deeper than that. It has different implications, right? The Gra says an ish is like a chashivas, a sar, like a royalty, right? And he brings a proof for that. Aleichem isha mikra v'konshkas v'lo ishata mishem chali isha v'shofet. Okay, that's one thing. Shalom yira adam lochiach es chavero al davar lo tov. It's good to give tochacha. Now, the Gemara says today that nobody could give tochacha. The Chazon Ish, I just told someone this yesterday. The Chazon Ish rules halacha l'maisa. There are absolutely no Rishoyim today, except maybe one or two. Well, I can tell you after the shir who they are. They were on the front page of Hamadiyah today. But the idea is that they're all Tanakh Shnishba, right? Who told me this? Ramosh Sternberg told me. I won't say the name of the person, but you could probably figure it out. He said, he's a Tanakh Shnishba. If you had a father like that, you would also be acting that way. So the shot is that because no one, the Chazon says, because no one can give tochacha today, because we have the same problems. You go to somebody give tochacha, and say, but you're much worse than me, and you say, right? So no one can give tochacha today, but there is still like an idea, a concept of tochacha. We have to give tochacha to ourselves. Kim yishmalo v'yetiv es ma'asav, a person who hears tochacha and improves. Now, there's another way to give tochacha, is not to speak directly to the person. Rav Noach Weinberg used to say, you're a straw man. You just talk in general about somebody. And that, we're almost finished here, 2 more minutes, we'll be finished. Kol mitzvah she'osehem al yadom. So the great mile of tochacha is afterwards, all the mitzvahs they do as a result of your tochacha, you get credit for, right? And you'll get schar for that, right? V'im lo yishmalo, right? So you also gain from that because you tried. As yitel es atov mimenu, kamosh kasra arizal. Okay. And now he's going to put this into the pasuk. I'm just skipping down a couple of lines. The person who speaks, right, the fruit of his mouth, but he gave tochacha, right, even if he doesn't listen to you, he'll good, right, he'll gain from it, right, the person who gave tochacha, right. Kol gmul the adam, klomar, kol ma'asav hatovim she'osin oso adam al yedei yishvalo, kinechshav olav kamo she'osin v'notel gam oso hagmul, right. So the person who gives tochacha. Now we can finish on this note, right? We spoke a lot about people who say things that you are too rough or too tough or unjustified, but sometimes even the person who says something improperly to you, but there's some truth to it. I think we said that story before. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, he once got a letter, and he was the Rav Yushalayim. He was a great person, He was from the Gedolei Ador, but he once got a scathing letter, like many paragraphs. And what did he do? He took the letter, and every Motzi Shabbos he read it, because he said it must be there's some truth to it, And when the person was nifter, he went to his levaya. Right? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword here. On one hand, you have to know how to be quiet and like not react to things, yeah, and be mushif and not muhal avil. On the other hand, if someone's saying something to you, it's a shliach from Hashem. We learned that a few weeks ago in the Gra, right? Yud Aleph Yud Tes. Because every single thing that happens, it's going to happen to you for sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter who said it. They're a shliach from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if someone comes and gives you like heavy duty musar, and you say like, who are you to give me musar? It doesn't matter who the person is, because you were supposed to hear that. You know, that was supposed to happen to you. If it wouldn't have happened to Shimon, it would happen to Levi, not Levi, Yisachar, whoever it might be. So we have our challenge set in front of us. Because when somebody says something to us which is improper, on one hand, we have to be quiet, we have to be miyushav, we have to take eitzah and just accept it, right? We can vent by taking eitzah, but we should not be quiet. On the other hand, yeah, we have to like listen to it a little bit and try to digest it and realize that this is being sent as a message to us. And try to think about maybe, even if it's only a small percentage, it might be something like very, very subtle in our personality. I just learned the Gemara today in Kedushin. A very powerful Gemara says, Kol aposel b'mumo posel. Right? It says if someone says something to you about you, that means they have it themselves. That's the way they see the world. They see the world through those lenses, so they're reflecting that on you. Right? So that might be where they're saying it. But they detect it in you as well. Right? And they might detect it on a very small level, but it's there a little bit. So we have to work on ourselves. And even if it's not there, it's worthwhile to work on it, because it's always worthwhile to work on anything that we can work on. So Kadosh Baruch Hu should give us the greatest siyata d'shmaya. We should be successful in this, and it's only practice. Like there's no easy way out. But the good news is, the Gemara says it's impossible to defeat the Yetzer Hara. Impossible. It's like always one step. No, it's always 10 steps ahead of you, the Yetzer Hara. So what do? He says siyata d'shmaya. Right? If you turn to Hashem for help, He'll give like all the help that you need, which is really, really comforting. So Hashem should help us. Again, pick one matzav during the day, which is difficult for you, right? It might be like conversation, certain person, certain event, whatever it might be, and use that as your stop time, right? In that interaction, whatever it might be, just stop and just, be muted. And you'll see it's just so much better. The hope is that eventually it'll just spill over into your whole day and things will be much, much better. Amen.